Dead Cells by Motion Twin has been a long time coming for me to look at. I've been excited about this game since playing the early access build, and now that it's finally out, it gives me a chance to kind of focus my thoughts and discuss a little bit more about the love and some of my nitpicks of the design that come up later in the game. But Dead Cells is a 2D, very action-focused roguelike. And while a lot of people compare it to Metroidvania, due to having some mechanic upgrades that we'll talk about later, this game definitely feels more like an evolution of Spelunky, in terms of being a very player-focused experience that has a procedurally and roguelike wrapper around it. Now, the story of the game doesn't really matter, it's told through various lore snippets, but the focus of it is on very challenging and very fast-paced combat. And one thing I really have to praise the game on is the fluidity of the actual gameplay. You've watched about a minute or so of footage by now, and everything in terms of attacking, dodging, and just general jumping around is very responsive, and it just becomes natural to you very quickly. And for me, I think this is going to be the game that is going to be the benchmark for a lot of 2D action games going forward. But the general gameplay, of course, is you're going to make your way through these various levels, and the levels themselves are procedurally generated, built on the biome. Each biome has its own unique environmental obstacles, enemies, and sometimes events that pop up. And then throughout the play, you're going to run into boss levels as well, which are just the fixed arena. Now, if you die, of course, you restart back at the beginning, but there is a very major persistent element that we'll talk about in a few minutes. As you play through Dead Cells, you're going to be picking up various items as well as scrolls of power, and both of those represent the game's two-tier progression system. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see three numbers, red, purple, and green, that donate your three stats of brutality, tactics, and survival, respectively. As you find these scrolls and use them to apply points to them, you're going to gain health up, or a max health increase, with that value decreasing based on each subsequent level of that stat. More importantly, whenever you level up a stat, gear that is also color-coded will go up by 15% if it matches that color. Now, what makes this very important, why it's two-tiered, is that it essentially allows players to get more powerful without being reliant on the RNG. If I get a lot of scrolls, then I only need to worry about finding very powerful weapons, because the weapons that I do have are going to be boosted by that 15% for each tick. If I don't find a lot of scrolls and I'm just having a slight health buffer, maybe I'll find a legendary weapon or a higher tier one to compensate. Now, weapons themselves are built on fixed blueprints, but will have random modifiers. And this is another very interesting aspect behind the synergy of Dead Cells. There's a lot of ways for weapons to combo and proc off of each other, such as I could have a sword that causes fire when I hit an enemy, while I have a grenade that does 100% more damage to burning targets. And then there's even more when we talk about the persistent layer. But all of this adds up to a very reactive gameplay, and the player is able to quickly adopt these new elements to their routine and then grow as they keep playing. But the other side of Dead Cells, in terms of what makes it so great, has to do with the persistence layer and what it adds to each subsequent play. Now, after every level, you'll be taken to a special area where you'll meet the collector here. And if you notice, I've been picking up these blue orbs, and they're called cells. And what they're used for is that you can unlock both passive bonuses that you see at the top, such as gold reserves, additional flask use, or to unlock blueprints that you've either picked up or gone through special events for new gear that will show up on subsequent runs. And once you've unlocked them via cells, they become integrated into the selection when the game is procedurally generating the content. You can also unlock mutations, which act as passive bonuses that can either supplement or define your build. But the whole point of the system is that the more you play Dead Cells, the more you unlock that will change how future runs go. And of course, a lot of these items can be very powerful or just very wacky in terms of their use. There's a Spartan boot that allows you to kick enemies and push them off ledges to do more damage. But similar to the Binding of Isaac, all this does is that it allows the game to grow and change as you keep playing. And this is a very powerful motivator and replayability for the title. And that's important considering how quickly you can die if things get out of control. Now, with that said, the persistence layer definitely works, but it does kind of hamstring you at the beginning when you need those extra flask charges and some of the stuff like gold reserves to make some of these runs doable. But it still works when everything is wrapped up in this very great action focus to give the game a unique feel to it. Now, the Metroidvania aspects, what people talk about, come in the form of artifacts that essentially give you several new moves or abilities, but they're really not that game-changing. Not in the same way that we see in something like Super Metroid or Symphony of the Night. And like I said, I think this game belongs or fits more as an evolution of Spelunky. Now with that said though, that does take me to some of my issues with the game. And just like with Spelunky, these issues do come into play when we talk about the late game or high level experience. What you're going to see is going to be the same boss fight fought twice. The first time with an unoptimal build, and the second time with one. And you're going to see the difference in terms of how long it takes. But with Dead Cells, while it is action focused, the abstraction still has a big impact on how easy or hard the game is. And a major part of that has to do with the fact that the bosses at this moment are fixed. They are hard-coded in terms of their build, their AI, and of course by extension, what works best against them. And this creates a very uneven difficulty spike for Dead Cells, similar to that of FTL, by the fact that when you have a fixed encounter and randomized progression, it doesn't really gel or mesh all that well. Now as you're watching so far, it is taking quite a bit of time to actually do damage to him. And again, this build is just not optimal for this fight. Now as you get later into the game and your mastery grows, you're going to start to see how things tend to repeat themselves. As I said earlier, the game features a procedural generation built on biomes, but there's not enough variance within each biome to make things feel all that different. It's a similar issue that I had with Spelunky. Now, please keep in mind, before anyone comments below, we're talking about expert level play. This is for people who have already spent countless hours going through it. And that's the same that goes for a lot of the complaints for this section. Now, with that said, the game, I think, could maybe use a little bit more tweaking in terms of late game balance. There are many enemies who, unless you have the right gear, they just become a frustration to fight. At the back half of Dead Cells, at least for right now, you're going to run into enemies who make use of multi-hit combos, such as the slashers, the pirates, spearmen, and even some of the elites that you run into. And the problem is that they can attack faster than your dodge roll can really, or the length of your dodge roll to finish the animation. And you're only invulnerable during that roll frame. So what ends up happening in a lot of cases is that you're going to dodge through the enemy's attack, and as you're coming out of the dodge roll, the enemy's already going to be on its second or third string in its combo, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Now, those enemies are countered via using a shield for its parrying ability. But again, if you're not finding a shield, you're kind of in trouble there. Now, things should be switching over in about a second or two to the second version of this fight. And you're going to see that difference. And one of the big examples of how much a build can change a fight is with the Hand of the King, who is the current final boss of the game. That fight, if you're not going into it with the right build tailored to it, can be a monster to deal with. Now, one last thing I want to talk about in terms of the high end that I'm not a fan of is how the game handles difficulty. Once you've beaten the game, you'll unlock boss cells, which unlock hard, very hard, expert, and I think one other tier. For each tier of difficulty, the game will seed in different enemies to the various biomes, which is good, but it also reduces your ability to heal and recover. And I am not a fan of that, especially considering how fast-paced Dead Cells is. It's very easy to take a random hit and cost about half to a quarter of your health, especially during boss fights. And having your health or your ability to recover be reduced by that, I think it's a little bit of an unfair difficulty. I'm fine with throwing in harder enemies or adding new unique challenges, but when you reduce my ability to heal, I just find that a little too off-putting. But I'm curious what expert Dead Cells players think about that reduction. But, like I said, when it comes to my problems with Dead Cells, these are not issues that a new player is going to run into. I'm over 30 hours into playing this game and probably still have many more to go. And I really enjoy this game. Like I said, it is a great combination of a player skill focus and how much that persistence of roguelike and the unlockables really add to progression and making this game you want to keep playing it. And I really hope that this is the breakout game for Motion Twin and that we continue to see more from them and for this. I would like to thank them for giving me a press key many weeks and months ago, and I really enjoy this one. So if you haven't played it yet, definitely give this one a look if you're a fan of action-based design. But with that said, thank you so much for watching today's video. Hope you enjoyed things. Be sure to come back for more discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Before we get to the credits, just a quick shout out to the supporters over on patreon.com/GWBycer. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to check back for our regular streaming, most nights at 9:30, 10 EST, and you'll find a schedule link down below. For a collection of my writings as well as audio casts on design, you'll find that at game-wisdom.com. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at GWBycer. If you're interested in hanging out and talking about game design topics, we have a Discord channel with the basic tier open to everybody, and that is linked down below as well. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, it is at patreon.com/GWBycer. Your support can help to keep things going and growing, and you can earn rewards such as ad-free versions of our talks, votings for our specific Let's Plays and grab bag streams, and more. But that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. I hope you come back for more great discussions on design here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games.